Welcome back to the Montgomery Companies Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery. Today, I'm with a guest that many of you know. If you don't, it's likely because you've been living under a rock. If you're a sports person, you for sure know this name. He's the man, none other than Don Yaeger. He's an author, thought leader, speaker, family man, believer. And he's been a guest on many major talk shows that includes Oprah, CNN, Good Morning America. He's an executive coach, an 11-time New York Times best-selling author, and a co-author of 30 books. He's an award-winning keynote speaker that is NSA certified. He's a leadership speaker. He's part of the Maxwell leadership team. On this podcast, we've had Jeff Henderson, Tim Elmore, Valerie Burton's going to join us. I don't know how this is happening, but God bless John Maxwell. We are just fortunate that we get to interview a lot of John's team. There's this Maxwell leadership team, thought leaders. Don Yaeger was tapped on the shoulder personally, individually by John to be one of his 5 leaders that kind of carries the torch of Maxwell leadership, with CEO Mark Cole also kind of leading the way. And listen, this guy's lived all around the planet. He studied top performers and great leaders. Hasn't just studied them, but spent time with them, shared a lot of conversation. He's lived with some of them. He's done life with these people. This list of just, great leaders, top performers: Jack Nicklaus, John Wooden, Walter Payton, Warrick Dunn, Jeff Tarkanian, Bubba Watson, John Smoltz. Many of you know those names. Maybe you've been a fan of some of those people or you've studied those people. This guy has studied them maybe as much as anyone. And he's given his life work to understanding leadership, understanding what makes people tick, what makes teams tick. And we're going to dive into just a really awesome leadership conversation today with my new friend and our dear guest, Don Yaeger. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Jordan. Although listening to all that, I feel really old. I feel like I've aged five years just listening to the introduction.
Well, listen, there's a lot of wisdom, man, packed into your journey, a lot of life experience. And
as my wife says, it's not the years, it's the miles, right?
That's right. Come on. It's the miles.
That's right.
Well, I kind of know how you may answer this question. I don't have the answer, but I always like to start with a question that's maybe to let listeners know a little bit more about who Don is, maybe some of the stuff that we wouldn't see out front on the internet. But give us maybe one thing that people would be surprised to know about Don Yaeger.
You made reference to it in the intro there. I've been around the world. I've lived, spent time worked in 65 different countries over the course of, and that's, I guess you could look and say there's 200. So I still got a lot to do, but I don't just love what that experience has done for me. I love it so much that I have 2 children, a son who's 13, daughter who's 12, and they've both been in nearly 24 countries in their lifetimes. And
wow.
So I really believe that ability to pick up, drop yourself into another environment, learn what others are experiencing, just gives you a much greater appreciation for the life we are blessed to live here in our country, but also it gives us a better appreciation of humanity.
Well, I think you've grown such an appreciation just by virtue of all the people that you've been able to sit close to, experience from different walks of life. And it should be noted too, not just in the sports world. You've studied the life of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Yep. You've written books about these leaders. So, I know you had this interesting conversation with your dad, and I'll let you tell the story so I don't steal your thunder, but he sort of encouraged you, when you were early on in your years, writing and interviewing, to maybe be asking some specific questions and paying attention to the answers. Can you give us a window into what that conversation was like with your dad and then how that transformed your journey?
Yeah, it was one of those parental wisdom moments that you don't really fully appreciate until years later. But I was graduating from college, my alma mater, Ball State University in Indiana, go Cardinals, and graduating, heading to Texas for my first job as a reporter, a newspaper reporter. And I stopped at home in Indianapolis, spent a couple of days. And as I was leaving, my father just grabbed me in the driveway and said, "Son, over the because you have chosen journalism as your profession, you're going to end up in the presence of and with access to people that most of the rest of us would just give anything to spend time with. You will be in conversation with those people. He said, you'll do your job. I'm not worried about that. He said, but do yourself a favor and always ask one question of them that will make you better for having had that conversation. And I remember just being, I had 1,200 miles of driving ahead of me, and I just was riveted by this challenge from my dad. And I came up with a simple question, which was, Jordan, if I've got a chance now to interview you, and if you could name one habit for me, one thing that you built into your daily routine that you believe allowed you to do things others couldn't, what would that habit be? What could I learn from you? And I asked that question over the course of a 30-year career about 2,500 times, and to some of the greatest winners of our generation, and kept their answers in a separate set of notebooks. And when I retired from Sports Illustrated, I sat down to try to calculate out what answers came up, because I wanted to know if that's where they leaned, why would I not spend my time leaning in those same directions?
So the natural next question then, Don, is what are some of the responses that you heard? What did the data reveal about these people that you spent time with?
Oh, gosh. Well, the number one answer that came up more frequently than all the rest is that at some stage in their life, they learned to hate losing more than they love winning. The truly great ones kind of expect to be successful. It really doesn't give them a thrill like it does some of us who are just shocked when it happens, right? But failure, whenever they fail, it leaves a mark in a way that allows them to grow. And so, but the way you learn to hate losing more than you love winning, if you dig into that conversation, is you don't make excuses when you fail. And most of us do that, right? Something doesn't go our way, we blame the economy, we say gas prices are too high, the wrong president is in office, or whatever it is, right? We've got some answer for why we didn't achieve what we were supposed to. And it's never our fault. And as long as you can deflect, as long as you can blame what happens on someone else, you'll never own it. And if you don't own it, you'll never get better from it.
So well said. And I know that there's a lot of lessons that, if we had another 3 hours, we could maybe unpack some of the other lessons, Don. You also have learned a lot about teams. You wrote a book about great teams, 16 things high-performing organizations do differently. And again, we don't have time for you to unpack all 16 things, but tell us a couple of your observations in spending time with great teams over the years.
Sure. It was actually a natural outgrowth of the individual high performance work that I had done, which was asking you for habits that made you better. I got challenged by an executive who said, "That's really awesome, but how do I build a team that's really that lasts, a team that sustains excellence?" And so I went out to study the best teams. I'm a big believer that success leaves clues, and that if we want to go get better, we chase success and learn its clues. And so I went to study the best teams all over the world, from Mike Krzyzewski at Duke to the All Blacks in New Zealand, the rugby team in New Zealand. And again, I'll give you the number one answer that came up when those great teams were being constructed and when they were being built, is that at some stage they don't just everybody. My good friend Simon Sinek, I love his work on, do you know your why? What is your why? But there's a difference between knowing your why and feeling your why. And the best teams feel a sense of purpose. And to do that, they often have to get to know who they serve. And, from a sporting team, right? It could be, you could be serving the the coaches that helped you get there. You could be serving the people who wore your jersey in previous lifetimes. Whatever it is, you learn who you serve, and you feel a connection to them, and then you have a deeper sense of what it means to actually carry forward what it is that you as a team have the ability to achieve.
Patrick Lencioni was on our podcast recently and has become a friend, and we were talking about this idea of servant leadership. And I've probably shared this on the podcast 3 other times because it was so impactful. And he said, it drives me crazy when people use the verbiage or use the term servant leader or servant leadership, because it insinuates
leadership.
Yeah, it insinuates there's another way to do it. Like service is leadership.
Right.
And so you hit the nail on the head. This is leading, right? It's understanding who are you serving and what is your purpose. And I love how you say, feeling your why. There's a difference between knowing it and feeling it.
Oh yeah. And, we may know intuitively, one example that I have in the book is the medical device company Medtronic, right? They're based out of Minneapolis. They make devices that are implanted in people that keep them alive. Intuitively, everybody that works at Medtronic knows they're keeping people alive. But the most impactful thing that happens every year at a Medtronic event occurs every year, the week after Thanksgiving, when many of their employees gather for their annual get together in their offices in Minneapolis. And they bring to the stage 6 families who were held together because a Medtronic device is keeping one of them alive. And each of those families get to look at the employees of Medtronic and hold a microphone and say, thank you, because you did what you promised. My father got to walk me down the aisle this summer. And, does that not change the way you feel about what you do? I may know that I'm keeping people alive, but suddenly I'm seeing a daughter and her father and pictures of her wedding up on the screen. And do I feel different about what I do? Yeah,
Amen.
I feel different. And so feeling what you do and why it matters changes the dynamic.
That is powerful, super powerful. Yeah, you're not just serving the individual, you're serving the people around them.
Absolutely.
There's a deeper purpose that goes beyond just, saving lives and keeping people alive, right?
Well, and we even make the point, I even make the point when I share that story from stage during a speech about this concept, that that one of the things that's really unique about learning that when I did from Medtronic, the CEO of Medtronic, was that he made the point that most people don't even think about the idea that Medtronic actually doesn't sell its device to those people standing on the stage. They don't sell their device to patients. They sell their device to hospitals or doctors. But the patients are where they're the downstream beneficiary of your good work. And often we get caught up in making sure our customer is happy. What we should really be connected to is who does our customer serve with what we do. And if we're really connected downstream, the feeling you have about the greatness of what you get a chance to do every day, it just explodes. So anyway.
Well, we could just end the podcast right here, and that would be one of the better episodes we've recorded, man. That was gold. That's so good for any leader, any human, just to hear. I mean, that's what a powerful thing to think about in how we operate in our work, in our daily lives with our family. I mean, that's a powerful thought. Hey, we're not even halfway through. I got so much stuff I want to ask you about, Don. And one of the things that makes you a really effective leader and communicator is you're a great storyteller. And I couldn't let you off our podcast. I couldn't have you on the podcast without asking you to tell us some of these great stories. And I've got a bunch of them I want to ask you about, but you spent a bunch of time with Walter Payton in the end of his life. And you wrote this book, Never Die Easy, about Walter. And again, I don't want to steal your thunder, but can you tell us what it was like to spend time with Walter Payton and his family? You actually lived with him for a period of time. Tell us more about Sweetness.
Well, I mean, let's start with the randomness of the fact that he was my hero, right? I mean, I played football, loved Walter Payton, wanted to be the white number 34, right? I was going to be the white Walter Payton. Of course, all I had was the jersey number, right? I didn't have anything else, but I had the jersey number. And the idea that a few years later, I would get to know him as a writer, and then he would get ill and he would make a decision that it was time for him to write a book. He knew that he was not going to live and through his illness, and he chose me to be the writer. And so I got to be chosen by my hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in its own way, that's really emotional. And then when you get there to find out that he chose you, but he knows he's not going to live, and you're going to experience this with him. And it's going to be one of those things where he knows from day one that he will not be there to read the book when you're done. And which means he has to trust you. And for me, it was game changing. Like, it was life changing to have Walter Payton offer me that endorsement, if you would, right? That trust, which is, trust is an endorsement in its own way. And he, by giving me that, allowed me to just be present in his life and with his family for the last 10 weeks of his life.
Special.
It was incredible. I was there at the home the morning Walter passed. I mean, I helped the family construct the statement that they wrote, shared out to the world that he was gone. And it was, for me, I love the Payton family. I love Jarrett and Connie, his widow, Jarrett and Brittany, his two children. Been honored to be at their weddings, and I feel like I'm blessed to have been with them. But they taught me so much, because for everything I honored, there's an old saying in sports: never meet your heroes, because they'll almost certainly let you down. Walter Payton broke that saying for me. He was better in that time than I could ever imagine. He taught me lessons about what it meant to be not just great at what he did, but great at who he was, and lessons that I hold dear today.
And you had a chance recently to interview and kind of record a conversation with the children, right? In the family, Don?
Yeah. Yes, we did. We did
special.
We do a podcast. I do a podcast, corporate competitor podcast.
Yeah.
There you go. Got to pimp it out a little bit.
That's right, man. That's right.
I do a podcast that, and I had Brittany and Jarrett on for that podcast, just to talk about what it was like to have the relationship with two special people because of the opportunity afforded by their father.
So cool. And we should have mentioned a podcast at the top of our conversation. The Corporate Competitor is actually where I first learned about Don Yaeger and following you and your work. And you've got, one of the top podcasts, I think, on the topic of leadership, personal development. So thanks for your faithfulness, man, in interviewing top thought leaders. You're putting so much good stuff out into the world.
Well, and probably like you, Jordan. I mean, the thing is, I'm a junkie for this stuff, right? I would do this for free, and I would do it. I would do it all day long, no matter what. And the opportunity to get a chance to interview people that I would love, that I constantly want to learn from. It doesn't just hopefully make listeners better. It makes me better every time I get a chance to do it. I hope. Other than this hour, I hope you'll be able to. I'm sure you'll say that about most of your conversations.
Well, man, I'm telling you, this is you're right. Some of my top relationships have come from people that we've interviewed, and so it's not just what you learn, but it's this amazing gateway to new relationships and friendships. So, yeah, big deal. And you've been so faithful in interviewing so many wonderful people. But we're gonna stay in this theme of stories. Warrick Dunn is a person that you've been really close with, become close to. This is one of the most powerful stories. So get ready for this one. If you haven't heard Don talk about Warrick, I know you spent a lot of time together. Specifically, I'd love for you to tell the story of going to this prison with Warrick for a really special, impactful conversation. I'll just leave it off right there and let you take the wheel, Don.
Wow. Well, for those who might not know Warrick, he was a running back in the National Football League. A little one, 5'8", 178 pounds. But the smallest player in history of the NFL to have achieved, to have run the football for 10,000 yards, right? At that, and to think about doing it at that size, it's really incredible to take the beating that you have to. But his life story and his backstory is even more incredible than his numbers. Son of a police officer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Police officer, single mom, who had 6 children. He was the oldest of the 6. He becomes so good. He loves football, and over the course of his high school career, becomes so good that literally every major college coach in the South made their way to Betty Smothers' couch to ask if her son could come play at their university. Christmas Day, he wakes up. He and his mom do. They make a decision that afternoon that he is going to go play at Florida State for Bobby Bowden. And they actually called Coach Bowden on his cell phone. And I knew Coach Bowden for years. And he used to say, for years, he would say that was the greatest Christmas gift he ever received, was that call from Warrick Dunn. Well, 2 weeks and 2 days later, Warrick's phone rings, and it's the local police calling to tell him that his mother had been shot and killed in a robbery at a bank. He was 18 years old, just turned 18 3 days earlier. He had all kinds of responsibilities that he wasn't ready for. He is now the man of the house for these 6 children, five additional children, and gets a phone call from Coach Bowden, who says, look, things are different. You can stay there. I mean, your commitment is, you don't have to hold to your commitment. You can stay in Baton Rouge if that's better for your family. And he says, no, man, my mother and I made that choice together. I'll see you there this summer. I would never dishonor her. I will see you there this summer, but I'm going to need an apartment. It's a little bit bigger, because he was bringing with him his 3 youngest brothers and sisters, because he was going to raise them while playing major college football. Goes on, not only does he have an incredible career, wins a national championship, becomes the all-time leading rusher in the history of the university, graduates with a degree in business, actually now has his MBA, but in that window of time, he finishes as the all-time leading rusher, as I said, at the university, and ends up going to the NFL. And when he arrives in the NFL, playing for Tony Dungy, Coach Dungy, he announces that he's going to start a charity buying homes for women like his mother, single moms. He just last week bought his 206th home for a single mom. I think the number right now is 553 children woke up in a house this morning that they get to call their own because of Warrick Dunn, right? This guy is just incredible at every level, just unbelievable. Couple of years before he is getting ready to finish his career, he wins the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I get to tie all these stories together. Isn't that cool? So wins cool. The Walter Payton Man of the Year award, the NFL honoring him for the, for the greatest off-field contributions made by an NFL player. He gets a chance to write a book, asked me to be the author with him. And in writing the book, the conversation turns one day to the idea that he had never spent any time in the presence of the man that killed his mother, that every time that man entered a courtroom, Warrick got up and walked out. And the question I asked him was, now this is years later, that man still sits in prison. If you could sit down with him, what kind of questions would you ask him? What would you say if you ever could go eye to eye with the man that killed your mom? And he got up, left my office because he couldn't deal with the conversation, came back a couple days later, had the questions in a notebook, and asked me, and we started talking about it. And as it happened, a friend from Louisiana had called me. We'd been talking about Warrick leaving the office and how awkward I felt for asking such a painful question. And my friend said, that's interesting. Look at this. And he sends me an article that says that in Louisiana, there's a law that if you're the victim of a crime that leads the perpetrator to death row, you're the victim, perpetrator's on death row, and you fill out certain paperwork, the Louisiana Department of Corrections will expedite a meeting between victim and inmate because they want the victims to find closure. So Warrick hands me this notebook with all these questions, and I hand him the article. And I said, look at this, buddy. You could actually go ask the questions. Whoa. It took him 3 more days to consider that idea. But when he came back, he said, Don, let's go. Let's go to Louisiana. I want to ask the questions. And we filled out the paperwork. We ended up at Angola State Prison. And when we walk in, the warden actually grabs him and says, Warrick, I know you came here for closure, but you need to know the man has his lawyers with him. He's in a cell we've got set up for you back there, but he's got his lawyers. And even though he confessed to killing your mother years ago, last night they filed an appeal with the United States Supreme Court in which he now claims he wasn't even there the night it happened. If you're going back there for closure, you're not going to get it. And Warrick looked at the warden and he said, sir, I didn't come here today for him. I came here today for me. And I should have known right then Warrick had something inside of him that was going to be the greatest I'd ever get a chance to see. And we go back in this little cell. There's a round table there. And we end up in this room. It's the inmate, his 2 lawyers, Warrick. I'm to his right. Warrick's high school coach is to his left. And there's just 6 of us in the room. And the man starts lying and telling this story about where he really was that night and how he wasn't even there. And 30 minutes later, Warrick finally holds up his hand to stop the conversation, closes his notebook of questions, and he said, if you weren't there that night, I don't know why you came here today. But I know why I came here today. I came here to forgive somebody. I remember walking out of that prison thinking I could go to the next 20 Super Bowls and I'll never see a greater championship moment. I will never see a single human do anything as extraordinary as that. And we got in the van and I asked Warrick, where'd you get that? Like, how'd you have that in you to be able to forgive somebody for the unforgivable? And he said, my mother used to tell us that there will be days out there where things will change the direction of your life. And in those moments, you get 2 choices. You could be bitter or you can be better. And today I wanted to make my mother proud.
Wow.
And I think about that all the time, man. Every time something comes up that suggests I've had a rough day, I think of Warrick Dunn and I think, man, I could be bitter, or I could be better. And today I just need to be better.
Wow. Well, I'm an emotional guy, Don, so I've gotten emotional on our podcast before, but I didn't intend to have tears with you today. That's it. That is such a powerful story. And you think about, your work has just led you down some of these incredible paths of just, not just relationships, but moments. You've just been in some really special, unique, life-altering moments. And I can't imagine
I'm blessed.
Yeah, you are. You are blessed. And
I know. And trust me, I am fully aware of it. I don't run from that at all.
Well, and listen, you've made it your life's mission to tell these stories, right? To inspire and encourage and empower people, and also I think be a part of their legacy. That this is part of Warrick's story and Walter's story, and again, man, you've been carrying the torch in this really unique way. What is that? If I want to ask you about a different type of story here in a minute, but before we go there, what has that meant to you? If you were able to kind of just describe that in words, these really unique moments, how's that touched you? How's that sort of shaped your life?
Well, I think every one of them have changed who I am, right? I mean, I would be, you can't, I'm an emotional guy too, right? I had tears in my eyes telling you this story, and I've done it 1,000 times. But I'm better because of the people I've been blessed to work with, people I've been blessed to be touched by. And, I said earlier, Walter Payton trusted me. All of these people trust me to tell their story and to do it in a way that's honoring. And but in every one of those stories, we're going deeper than they've ever gone before, most of them. And that's there's a really special responsibility that comes with that. And it's my honor, right? I look at it and I think they bless me when I get a chance to get into those conversations.
Yeah. Well, keep telling the stories and carrying the torch. Cause it's powerful. And those moments haven't happened to you by accident. I believe that, I really believe that. So thank you for your commitment and your faithfulness to be there for those people and then to share. Really special. This guy might not want you to share the story. His name is Michael Jordan. And one of the reasons you've become known, Don, among many, is that you are one of 6 people, I believe. Now this may have changed, but as far as we know, you're one of 6 people to beat MJ in a game of one-on-one on the planet. And so some people are thinking, wait a minute, hold on.
Hold on, they're Googling me and they're going, look at that. There's no way with that body that guy beat MJ.
Well, they're just thinking, no, he's a journalist. He's interviewed some great people, but did he play in the NBA? So tell this story. This is a pretty good story. Tell this story about, this is real. We're about to find out. You beat MJ one-on-one. Mike Krzyzewski was there to witness the moment. Tell us the story of beating MJ.
So I love hoops. I actually love basketball. I have a full court in my backyard. So I love the game of basketball. I shoot all the time. I've never met a shot I would not embrace. And I'm one of those guys, right? I get over half court and I think I'm in range. And so I get Mike Jordan actually hosts an old man basketball camp in Vegas. It's 100 guys, divides you into teams of 10, brings in great coaches, Krzyzewski, Boeheim. It's some of the greatest. 19 of the 20 coaches the year I was there were in the Hall of Fame already, right? Which is pretty crazy. And so you start making you start playing. But on day 3 of this event, Jordan actually walks out and he says, today I'm going to give 20 of you the opportunity to go one-on-one with the greatest player of all time, which is pretty arrogant, right? But how cool. And what a head case that makes it, right? Because you're immediately, the second you get chosen, you realize you're going against the greatest. Not that you didn't already know it, but he reminds you that he knows it, which is good too. Right?
That's right.
And he says, the rules are simple. I'm going to let my assistant explain them. His assistant says, yes, the rules are simple. Today, you're going to play a game to 1. The first guy to score wins. And by the way, in each of these competitions, Michael Jordan starts with the ball. Right? So obviously, first guy to score wins. Jordan starts with the ball. Your odds are really low. And she says, and Jordan steps in and says, by the way, in all the years I've done this, only 5 guys have ever scored on me. And today, there's not going to be a 6th. So obviously, totally in your head. The guy, 2 guys in front of me, goes out to guard Jordan, like she throws an elbow at him and stuff. And Jordan swipes the elbow away, 2 steps, thunder dunks, pulls the ball out, chucks it at the guy as he's laying there on the floor and says, now you know what it's like to be beaten like a bad child, right? Spanked like a bad child. And he's just a great trash talker. He loves trash.
Yeah.
So I go out and I actually back up and I give him space. And he looks at me, and I just decided he wasn't going to dunk on me. You know what? And he looks at me, and he's got the ball in his left hand. With his right hand, he's calling me out. And he looks at me, and he says, are you really going to give me this shot? And I looked back at him, and I said, I don't think you have it in you. Which makes everybody laugh. And so Jordan then just shakes his head, goes up, takes his shot, and he misses. And the ball goes wide left. I get the rebound, and now I take it back outside the 3-point line, and he's stepping out to guard me. As he's stepping out, I look back and I said, Michael, aren't you going to return the favor, and give me the same space I gave you, right? Basically. And he looks at me and he goes, I know you don't have that shot in you. And as he's talking, he's trash talking me. I literally go into motion, jacket 26 feet, nothing but the bottom of the net. Became the 6th player to ever score on Michael Jordan.
That is such an awesome story. Didn't Krzyzewski say that when you were playing defense, you'd have to get a cab?
Yeah.
What was the line?
He actually, when he was joking about, he said, Yaeger, you were so far away from him that if you'd wanted to go out and guard him, you'd had to take a cab. And so that's how much distance I gave Jordan. But anyway,
that's great. Hey,
one of those moments that I get to talk about for the rest of my life.
Come on,
I do talk about it as often as I'm allowed.
Well, you got a lot of great stories. That one's near the top. That's pretty good. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, let's end with a leadership lesson, man. You you've just spent so much time with great leaders in sports and business. I think that's part of what makes your journey so unique, Don. It's the spheres of influence that you've touched. From presidents to athletes to business people, executive leaders. You've kind of run the gamut. You've really been around a lot of different types of people. And your good friend, our mutual friend, John Maxwell, has this sort of famous question, right? And he always asks it in that John Maxwell tone and voice, but he says, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned? And I'm curious to know, in all your time working with leaders and being a leader yourself, as you look back over your life's work and journey, what's the greatest leadership lesson that Don Yaeger has ever learned?
I would tell you it would come from the opportunity I had to be in relationship with a basketball coach named John Wooden. I would argue greatest coach ever in the history of any sport. Coach Wooden and I had a relationship over the last 12 years of his life, in which every other month for 12 years, I flew to California for a day with John Wooden. And my day these were mentoring sessions. He would answer questions as long as I had them. And so I came prepared with, mountains of questions so that I could learn from him. But one day we were talking extensively about growth, and he launched into a lesson about the importance of the circle of people you have around you. And the lesson ultimately, kind of the climax is, you will never outperform your inner circle. That if you want to know what your capacity for greatness is, your capacity for success is, you look at the people you have around you in your personal life, in your professional life, whatever circles of life you might have spinning. Look at who you put in your circle. And by the way, your circle is not the people you wish you had in your life. It's the people you spend your time with. That's your circle. And one morning we were talking about this at Coach's favorite restaurant. And he takes a sheet of paper out of my notebook and he draws 2 lines down the sheet. And he says, when you come back tomorrow, he says, I want you to go through, and the first line, I want you to pick the 5 people you spend the most time with in your personal life. The middle is the 5 people you spend your most time with professionally. Like, who do you go to lunch with? Who do you hang out with? And the third one is maybe Rotaries or church or some other more social organization. And he said, as you look at each person on that list, I want you to ask yourself, are they going where I want to go? Or are they maybe the anchor that's keeping me from getting there? And he said, because you will never outperform your inner circle. And if you want to be better, your job is to look at that list, strike the names that are keeping you from going where you're trying to go, and create a new circle because that's going to be the defining moment in your life. And Coach Wooden's admonition to me about constantly evaluating my circle has been probably the most game-changing leadership advice I've ever received.
Really good. Really good. Most people who come on this podcast have a story or two. They've spent time with a top thought leader or two. Even the greatest, most well-known leaders have some cool stories with a handful of leaders. I mean, you literally have thousands of stories with dozens of leaders from so many different walks of life, from John Wooden to Walter Payton, John Smoltz to Warrick Dunn. The list just goes, Bubba Watson. The list goes on. And I just, I think,
actually, if I felt 5 years older just listening to your intro, now I feel 10 years older listening to that line. Thank you.
Well, I'm telling you, hey, it's you've packed it into a really short period of time. I mean, it is truly remarkable how many people you've spent time with. You've got to be one of the more interesting people to have a conversation with, just because of your breadth and depth of knowledge and relationships. Here's what I think about when I think about Don Yaeger. I want to ask you this final question. You've managed to grow in your influence with people who have influence. I mean, that's kind of been a hallmark of your existence. So if you're gonna challenge our listeners, if there's one thing they could do to grow in their influence, because you've done it well, you've done it maybe better than anyone walking planet Earth right now. If they want to grow in their influence with leaders, in their place of work, in their community, with their family, what's one thing that you'd recommend a young leader, emerging leader, any leader do to expand their influence?
Ask great questions. So I'm going to cheat and give you two, right?
That's fair.
Ask great questions and then listen. Most people are so busy trying to formulate the next question, or they're so busy trying to imagine how they're going to respond to whatever the person is saying, that they're not listening. And the true wisdom is in listening.
Knowledge speaks, wisdom listens.
I love it.
And you, my friend, have just a ton of wisdom. This has been a joy. Thank you so much for investing your time and energy. We want to honor your time. I know Don Yaeger has things to do, places to go, and people to serve. So
we got to make sure we shout out our.
I want to say thanks.
Got to make sure we shout out our friend Cody Foster, who helped us build this relationship. That's awesome.
Cody's the best. If you're not following Cody, Business of Advice podcast, go check out Cody's podcast, Advisors Excel in Topeka, Kansas. Dear friend of mine, of Don's. And again, Don, I want to give your podcast a shout out. Corporate Competitor. If you're not listening to the Corporate Competitor, go check it out. I mean, Don's interviewing some of the most fascinating people. Again, he's an 11-time New York Times best-selling author. You can find him all over social media. He's hard to miss. And I know, Don, we have a bunch of people who are digging into your content right now, looking you up, wanting to know more about you. What's next for Don Yaeger? Can you give us a window into what you're working on right now?
Yeah, my next book is with a minor league baseball team in Savannah, Georgia, called the Savannah Bananas. And they're an amazing study, and it's actually it'll be one of the great business books I'll ever write. And then you get to throw minor league baseball in it as well. So it'll come out next spring.
Awesome.
But the big thing for me now is I'm rebuilding the speaking business like you are. We all lost it for that couple of years. So just rebuilding the opportunity to go out and speak to audiences again.
Well, listen, we're gonna do some speaking together. I'm committed to bringing you to Iowa, pulling you into some of our events that we're putting together. You just have too much wisdom for the great people of Iowa not to hear it. So I look forward to that opportunity to share a stage with you at some point.
Can't wait for that. Jordan, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. This has just been a real treat and a joy. And this is one I'm going to play back, many times over. So thanks for being with us, Don. Thanks for who you are, all that you do. Really honored to have you on the show.
My honor.
This has been another episode of the Montgomery Companies Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Montgomery. I want to say thanks also to John Choate and James Roth of Storyline Multimedia for all of the work that they do behind the scenes to make this episode go. If you enjoy listening to this show, if you're somebody who tunes in once in a while to our podcast, we'd love it if you'd officially subscribe so that we could move our mission of impact forward. This podcast is designed to help the leader go farther, faster. We hope we've done that today. Be well, be great. Have a wonderful day.